Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new video. So I don't know about you, but I'm getting quite excited about Legions Imperialis. I know it's not Epic 40k or Warmaster, but it's Epic Warhammer of some kind, and I'm really pleased that Games Workshop is at least stepping back into this scale of Warhammer again, and maybe it leads on to other things, maybe it doesn't, but at the very least, now that the Black Library series is starting to wrap up, for me, this is kind of the game to help relive some of those titanic battles where hundreds of Astartes are decking it out. It's not really, I think, as feasible or certainly not as affordable with the other Horus Heresy tabletop games. So yeah, I'm pretty excited on that front. But Games Workshop itself is quite excited. It's been doing a lot of Warhammer community articles, and so it should be, because when it announced the game, it said that it was coming out in August. But that seems to have changed, because in an article they recently did on some of the fire support units for the Solar Auxilia, remember we've got two factions, the Astartes and the Solar Auxilia, and I'm sure others will come down the line later. They talk about the different weapons platforms, and they're all really cool turrets and different sort of options that you can play around with. But right at the bottom here, they do a little release update. It's just 2 sentences long, but it's probably some of the most titanic news we've heard about Legions Imperialis since it was announced. And they say, while we had initially hoped to release Legions Imperialis in August, the release date will now be a little later in the year. Don't worry, you'll be commanding a tiny legion of troops to victory very soon. So it's not going to be in August, it's going to be later in the year, and we can talk about the possible release dates later in the video, but there is a bit of context to this in case you didn't know. Games Workshop has had some logistics issues with its warehouses. The current info, at least from what I've heard from Games Workshop staff and other areas, is that they've moved to a more automated warehouse system, and they're building other warehouses near the airports in Nottingham, I believe, which is basically causing a load of issues. There was stock issues and delivery issues well before Leviathan came out, but they put everything they had into Leviathan, and that just compounded a lot of the stock issues, hence why so much Warhammer, so many Warhammer products are out of stock right now, and it's taking so long for some people to get their orders. And they've announced on their website that they're upgrading the warehouses, so there's going to be sort of further, albeit planned, delays to people getting their Warhammer, and I'm sure that's going to knock on to independent retailers as well. Now, on one level, that's really annoying, because lots of people have been posting comments in my videos and other people's videos to say that they're really excited to get their hands on this set. And again, because Games Workshop's been gearing up for an August release date, they've been putting out lots and lots of Warhammer community articles that have been explaining why this set is so cool, and just, again, building up more and more anticipation. But I do think this is probably a little bit better for the game in the long run, and the reason is that they've got a pretty packed pipeline of releases between now and Christmas, both in Legions Imperialis and their wider games. But just starting with Legions Imperialis, you've got the core set. Now, production of the core set is pretty important, because there's nothing more annoying than getting excited for a game and then having it kind of go out of stock before you've even got your hands on it. And heck, we've all known that when we've tried to get pre-orders for Warhammer these days. But more so, I think if people get their hands on the core set, they're going to want to supplement it with a lot of these extra boxes that we're seeing. And if there's a long delay between those two, I think that's going to kind of frustrate players, and it's not going to be healthy for the game if people are just left with the core set, especially if it's run out of stock for sort of a prolonged period of time. But at the same time as well, Games Workshop has got a ton of stuff to get out in the meantime. In 40k, here is the release calendar for the end of 23 going into 24. We've got the Tyranid and Space Marine codexes, followed by the Adeptus Mechanicus and Necron codexes. We've also got the Tyranids that were showcased after the Battle of Ogrim campaign, and the Space Marines that will be shown soon that have also got to come out following that campaign, and possibly other models to supplement the Admech, the Necrons, and all the other codexes that are coming in the new year. At the same time, AOS has got a pretty big calendar as well. We've just had book 1 of the Dawnbringers series. We're going to be getting the Cities of Sigmar Battle Tome along with their box set, and presumably all their models coming with it that aren't included in that core set. We've got book 2 and 3 of the Dawnbringers campaign, another Battle Tome, book 4 of Dawnbringers, and then if they pull an Arcs of Omen, they may even have a book 5 for Dawnbringers, which will probably be a big climactic reveal in and of itself. And of course, Age of Sigmar is also reaching that 3-year window where it needs to be refreshed, or presumably will be refreshed. So we'll have new Age of Sigmar kind of being put into production and gearing up for release just a few months into the new year, probably around summer again. Now, bringing it back to Legions Imperialis, you can see that the game has to fit into a pretty packed timeline, and again, whether it's people not being able to get their hands on the core set because production's so stretched, or whether they're waiting long periods of time to supplement those collections, there's a lot that could go wrong that could ruin what is the start of possibly a quite exciting game for a lot of players. So in that sense, I do think they're right to delay it, but the thing that kind of frustrates me is that it's so quietly done. And Games Workshop, having made a big thing about the announcement and the August release date, the fact they've just squeezed it into the bottom of an article shows me that they're not really managing expectations, certainly if people haven't read this article and found out the news for themselves. Now, the good news is that Games Workshop is upgrading those warehouses, and while there is going to be a bit of delay while they move over to those new warehouse systems and bring them up to scratch, what this hopefully means is that we're at the end of this huge stock issue saga that we've seen across all Warhammer games. But naturally then the question goes to, when will Legions Imperialis be released? Well, I think Games Workshop is keen to get it out, so my thinking is that it'll be around the end of September or the beginning of October, and there's two reasons for that. One, again, they're really keen to showcase this game. They've got loads of stuff coming towards the end of winter and in the new year, so they want to get it out as soon as possible so that it doesn't start to clash with those releases. And more acutely than that, Christmas can be a pretty packed schedule for a lot of people, and money can get quite thin, and usually Games Workshop brings out army sets and other big releases. And again, going back to the AOS roadmap, we've got some pretty big battle tomes and books coming out that Games Workshop's going to want to really hype out. Basically, they're not going to have a lot of room in the new cycle to talk about Legions Imperialis, so that's why I'm thinking it's going to be around the end of September or the beginning of October. But to be honest, it's anyone's guess, and I'm sure Games Workshop aren't really in an envious position right now because, hey, their game is so popular, or their games are so popular, I should say, that people can't get hold of them because there's so much demand. But at the same time, I'm sure they don't want to be in this situation for any longer than they have to be. So yeah, that's basically the news. Legions Imperialis is postponed, hopefully for just a couple of months, but it could be for anything up to 4 or 5 months. But what do you think? Is your excitement dulled down a little bit by this announcement? Do you think Games Workshop should have been a little bit more forthright? And what are your expectations for when the game is going to come out? Let me know in the comments section. And as always, a big thank you for watching today. If you enjoyed the video in this format, please do let me know again in the comments section and give the video a like, and do subscribe if you want to join me for future Warhammer videos, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then though, take care.